Hello, today is the 10th of July. Gosh, July. I keep thinking it's June. 10th of July, 2021. And today's tea has it's kind of a homage to where I was yesterday. I went to Broadway in the Cotswolds, and I go there. I didn't go to the lavender fields, but I will do probably later this month. So I've got, what is it, lavender with Earl Grey. So it's kind of a homage to the lavender fields, which I miss. I didn't get there last year, and it's a place I really love. I really love. It's very serene. It's beautiful just to walk along the lavender fields and take in the scent, and it's lovely. And I've had some really lovely outings there with some really special people in my life over the years. It's funny because I always go with, well, actually, I have gone there twice with the same, repeated times with the same people, but I have taken other people there, and it's just a special place. So I enjoy sharing it with special people. Anyway, and sometimes on my own. Me and my many invisible friends. We do sometimes go by myself. So anyway, I went there yesterday with a friend, and it was really lovely. We had a walk around. We did the entire length of the street, so even past where all the shops are, because we weren't there to do, window shopping, but we were there just to look at architecture, have a chat, have some exercise. And we really enjoyed looking at the different gardens and the different styles of the house. I love the Cotswold brick. Everything is in that beautiful stone. And it is a place I absolutely love. We passed by a couple of chaps that were building a dry stone wall, and we chatted to them because it's something that I've been wanting to do for probably about, I don't know, 10 years. But I've obviously never made the effort to do it, but it appeals to me, and I think it would be a really intriguing craft to learn. And I know that you can get like a day's tuition or something like that. But they did so you could help, and I thought, okay, yeah, but I imagine you need a lot of tuition to be able to do it. But I just think it's an extraordinarily amazing craft, and I think all of these traditional crafts are, they're just it just blows me over what people can do with traditional tools and traditional resources. And while I don't own any antiques, I love antiques for that respect. Is that you can see that the time and attention something has required to create the thing, and back then we didn't have the modern tools. Now anybody can factory a piece of something, a objet d'art or whatever, but to see something being made with craft, um, like traditional skills, I just think is amazing. Anyway, that's just my little preamble there. What was I going to chat? Well, something just kind of I've had on my mind this morning. Let me just get that more in frame. I've had on my mind this morning, and usually when I read something, like on a social media or something, I have to, and I feel it kind of creates an emotion in me. I have to wonder, what is it I'm trying to resolve? So it's not about what the other person's written, but it's more about, well, what am I trying to resolve? Because I realize my reaction is totally my choice. And what it was is, and I realize that we're coming into a time where there's going to be lots of change in everybody's life. And what we had in regards to our comfort is probably going to be shifted. So for some people, that comfort could be they might lose their home, they might lose their job, they might lose a partner, they might lose other family members from in a physical sense, that someone may leave the earth plane, they may die, but also in another sense of where maybe their grown-up kids don't see eye to eye in regards to whatever their belief systems are, and they realize that they just can't be around these people anymore. So there's going to be loads and loads of change. And what kind of spurred this on is on a social media platform. It was a few months ago. Somebody had posted that they basically were asking for help, and they said, I've recently, my partner and I've lost our jobs, and we're still working out all of the forms. I don't know anything about the procedure for the different. There's lots of different charitable associations out there. So you've got it's like food banks, and there's others, Salvation Army. So there's other. It's either charities or there might be government-run programs that help assist people when they need help with food or resources or paying a bill or whatever. So they basically said, look, we're still trying to get paperwork sorted to get whatever funding we need, but right now we're in a bit of dire straits. We could use some help with food. And I, along with some other people, responded, and I had sent this lady a private message and said, well, I'm like you, I'm out of a job now, so money's tight. And I said, but I do have some extra tins of things. I've got some rice, I've got pasta, I've got some beans and some tomatoes and things. I said, I'm happy to share what I have. And she said, by the time I'd emailed her, she said, oh, don't worry about it. There's been another lady on here very kindly helped me. And I thought, good, that's the way I see things are going to start changing, is we are going to have to start helping each other. So that to me is something that I foresee in the future. So since that time, she's posted a couple other times, and there was one yesterday where a similar kind of thing. We're in dire straits, and we're just not able to make ends meet. I could use some help food wise, and I started thinking about that because it was creating an emotion in me. I don't know what the emotion was. It wasn't about her, because my opinion about asking for help is, or even asking a question, any kind of question, is you don't know the answer till you ask a question. And we seem to live in a society where people are so adverse to offending other people. But then again, how do you know what offends someone to know what not to say to offend them? So it's all very complicated. I don't know why we can't just communicate. So if you if if you don't ask a question, you don't know the answer, whether you're asking for help or a favor or maybe just asking someone on a date. If you don't ever ask the question, you don't know the answer. And this idea of within ourselves creating this whole big story about offending someone, well, that's our garbage. We've got to sort it out. We can't presume what offends someone else, because what we're doing is coming from a place that we think we know them, which I interpret as very egoic. I'm so full of ego that I know exactly what you're going to think, and I know exactly what's going to offend you, which I don't get. So that's where I come from. If I want to know something, whether I'm curious about, someone might post something and I don't quite understand what they mean, and I maybe want them to word it in another way for someone like me who might be a novice in whatever it is. So let's say it's something to do with tarot or astrology. For me, it comes from a place of, I'm asking a question to get clarification because I really don't know what you mean, but it's not to upset or offend. So those things I don't even think about. But what's interesting, and I've learned this in my life, is there have been occasions where people will blow up at me, and I think, wait a minute, I'm asking for clarification because I don't understand what you mean. I want to understand what you're saying so that I can either learn from it or challenge you or whatever. And I've had people come back and say, I'm really sorry. It's just that social media seems to be about people blowing up at each other. And it does take me a while to word things, because I realize that, again, you don't have it's. So again, that's about my ego, I guess, that I'm worried about offending someone. But with social media, the challenge is we don't have voice intonation. We don't have eye contact or facial expressions to say, really, I don't understand what you mean. So someone could actually understand we're coming from a place of, we're wanting to learn what you mean, but we don't know. And the same thing, I believe, goes with wanting help. I recently asked somebody for help with something and fully prepared to give them an exchange by way of some money. I said, I will pay you for your services because they have a skill. And I said, would you be willing to do this? I will pay you. But I did say, without asking the question, I don't know the answer. So that's how I approach things. So I totally get that this woman was asking questions because she wanted to know the answer. So to me, it's very simple. However, what I feel about that, so I'm in a similar position. I mean, I guess I'm a little fortunate because I'm still living off of my redundancy pay. There will be a point where that runs out. But right now, because I live simply, I don't do posh stuff. I don't go like shopping every week and all that. I live very, very simply. Um, So, and one thing I did do, and this was interesting, this was last year when we first got sent home. So even before I was on furlough, when I first got sent home, I started canceling a lot of things I was members of. So I was members of things like the Woodland Trust. There was a couple charities I sent them regular donations. There was a couple museums I had membership of. And right away I canceled all this stuff. And it was almost like I knew, but that's how I react. So these things I like being part of because I like to be able to support the arts or animal charities or earth charities or whatever. I love supporting that as much as I can. And I still will do it. But the values I was giving them was probably more than I can afford right now. So that was the first thing I did. And I thought, phew, okay, I've saved myself a little bit of money, and then that will be able to pay for my food and my bills for X amount of months, should anything happen. Because at this point, I was still working. Then I went on furlough, and then it was like, okay, things might change a bit. So, but that's just my way of reacting because I like to always have a little bit in the pot for it's the rainy day pot, isn't it? So I thought about this, and it can, if I was in a similar position, what would I do? So this is not a judgment on this person because she's asking a question because she wants to know the answer and she genuinely needs help. But what would I do in that position? Okay, I understand the need for asking for help. And what I what I realize is a point in our time there will be a point in our life that maybe we deal with something very earth shattering. So let's say we've had the death of a partner. So the rug's been pulled under our feet. This person that maybe had been in our life for 30 years is gone, and all of a sudden we have to navigate whatever. You know, they've been our emotional support, they've been our physical support, they've been that person we rely on when we're making decisions or when we're doing errands or whatever. So I understand the immediacy of that. There is going to be grief. And it's not just losing someone to death, that there's grief in even just someone losing contact with someone. I'm still grieving about losing my job. And I feel slightly vulnerable admitting it into to strangers, basically, whoever's watching this. I do feel vulnerable admitting it, but I'm still going through a grieving cycle. But it's okay because any loss in our life, you deal with grief. So it could be loss of a job, loss of a marriage, death. It could be loss of a home. Anything can bring grief into our life. And grief has a cycle. There is no set time limit. We go through the cycle. But at some point, we will move through it. I wouldn't say, I would say we probably heal a bit, but we're a changed person. So we're always going to be affected by that thing. And we have changed because of it. We will never be the same person we were before. And we never get over it. I don't like that phrase. We never get over these things. We just change, we evolve, and we become stronger, and we move on, and we survive. And it doesn't mean that we're never hit by it. There's times where I think about someone I've lost from my life, and I will get emotional. Or I think about I might be somewhere and I think about a memory of when I visited some place with someone significant and I had a great time, and I'll be very touched by it. So we do revisit these things. We never get through it, but we're changed. So in the immediacy of it, I understand coming from a point of view of wanting some comfort from people, and I understand wanting a little bit of that. We're in a state of we feel sorry for ourselves because we've lost, and that's okay. It's okay to feel sorry, and it's okay to navel gaze a bit. I think that's totally normal. And we want other people to appreciate where we're at and maybe give us a pat on the back or a hug or have a listening ear for us. And I think that's okay. And when this woman first posted that, that's kind of where I felt that's kind of the emotion I felt from it. So this was new to them. They both lost their job. Everything had changed. They've had to sell their car. So she said, I have no way of picking up things. I hate to ask, but if you're not within walking distance, would you mind, could we arrange for you to drop it somewhere? So I understand that. She was coming from a place of, wow, my whole life's changed and I need help. That's okay. But then there's a point where you can ask for help, or okay, like I said, I'm saying, well, how would I do this? So there would be a point in time where I'd say, okay, it's okay for me to ask for help, but I need to come from a place where the person or the people I'm asking for help are, I look at them as my brothers and sisters. They're my peers. So I'm asking you for help, not to pity me, not to treat me like I'm a victim or I'm a charity case, but to empower me. And I think asking for help can be empowering in the right context. So let me give you an example of what I'm thinking. So it's been on my radar for probably about 2 years to learn foraging. Actually, maybe more than that. It could be about 3 or 4 years. It's been on my radar. I occasionally watch foraging videos, and when I go for walks, I pick things and I try and identify them, but in a kind of hobby way because it interests me. But probably about 2 years ago, I got a bit more serious about it. And because of work and still trying to deal with my energy levels, I never quite got to taking a class. And it's on my radar. I do check to see what foraging classes are happening on a regular basis. And again, when I go for walks, I still identify stuff. And in fact, in my garden, because it's so overgrown, I've got a meadow, not completely by choice because my lawnmower needs fixed, but that's a totally different issue. So I do trying my best to identify things, but I would really love to have an expert there for my first time out foraging so that I could see if my hunches are right. Am I identifying this correctly? It just would be nice to have someone to I'd like a mentor for the first time or two that I do it, which I think is understandable. So for me, especially now that I've lost my job and I don't know when I will be back at work, and I don't know what's going to happen otherwise, for me to learn to forage is empowering. So I may need to ask for someone's help in the future. I may be short of something. I may be short of a resource. I may be short of some money or some food, or I may need a helping hand somewhere. But I want to be able to ask someone from a place of that's going to empower me. Of I look at you as my equal. As my equal, I need help with this. Not because I'm a victim and I'm doing nothing, but because I'm doing all these other things. So I'm foraging, I'm growing my own food. I may be trading some things over here. I may be selling my car at some point. I don't know. But there's still a little bit what I need help with. So that to me is very empowering rather than just staying the victim. It goes back to that saying, teach a man to fish and he can look after himself. But if you stay in that kind of victim mode of, well, we've just lost our job. Well, you lost your job 6 months ago, and I get that. And you may still be dealing with the grief, and I get that. But I guess I would want to say, so what are you doing to empower yourself? I mean, I assume, and I don't know, I'm assuming that this person, and again, I'm using myself as example. I'm not making a judgment. It's not my place to judge someone else's path in life. That's their path in life. But I'm just saying, I'm putting myself in their position. If I was, after 6 months of losing my job, asking for more help, but I'm not doing anything practical, i.e., I'm not selling anything, I'm not growing anything, I'm not learning to forage, I'm not looking at the differences between what I need in my life as a necessity and what is a luxury, because I think that's something that's really, we've gotten screwed up. Again, that is a judgment of me, but I look at my life and say, if I had to live on the bare bones, what would I get rid of? Well, for me, it would be things like computer. I don't need a computer. I don't need the internet. That's a luxury. I know that we tend to see it as a necessity, but to me, it's not. To me, a luxury is a roof over my head, food, water, heating. I'd quite like electricity, but if I had to lose one of those, I guess the electricity would go because I'd rather have the heat than the electric. I hope it never gets to that in my life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bring that on myself. But to me, a necessity is something for survival. And maybe I don't know, maybe I watch too many survival films. I don't know. But I guess for me, it's very clear about survival and luxury. I love makeup. I would hate to not have my makeup because I've worn it every day since I was a teenager. But that's my fun. So that's a hobby. And I love my different teas. But if I couldn't buy my different teas anymore, I'd drink water. So it's interesting. And like I said, I'm not judging this other person's path. That's their path to deal with. I pretty much just thought, well, how would I do it if it were me going through a similar thing? Um, and as I said about asking for help, I find empowering. And I think because it requires it for me to ask for help, because I'm not used to asking for help. I'm used to just powering through and doing things myself. And there are times in my life that I would like to ask for help, but I don't. And why I think it's empowering or healing, maybe healing's a better word, is because I think to ask for help, especially when you're asking on a level ground, I am asking you as an equal. You're my brother, my sister. I mean, brother and sister in metaphorical sense, that everybody on this planet is my brother and sister. But asking as an equal, not as a victim, not to have pity, but asking as an equal, to me is coming very heart centered. To me, not asking for help to me is egoic, because it's kind of assuming that I can do this all myself, which, given the right tools, I probably could, but it's not what we're meant to do. We're social creatures. We're meant to help each other. So I think we're going to get into a time where there's going to be more and more of this happening, because people are going to be having lots of stuff that is their norm being changed. They're going to lose jobs. They're going to have to sell things. They might lose their homes. They might lose their partners. And that we're going to get in a time where asking for help is going to be crucial to our survival. But I think what would help us is to learn to come from a place of equals, is to say, okay, I've lost these things in my life that were my norm. How can I empower myself? And then if that little bit I still need help with, I can ask for help here, but at least I know I'm doing this over here. And I think that's a much healthier way to go. I think the people that are going to survive the the challenges ahead are going to be the ones that say, right, okay, I've lost my job, but I could go and grow some stuff and I could forage. And if I just grew one crop, I could trade with, Jane Doe down the street who grows tomatoes. I could trade courgettes. And I think that's where we'll feel like we're more empowered. And I think it would just help our survival. Anyway, these are just my opinions. I have no judgment placed on anybody else. And like I said, I'm not judging this woman. She's doing what's right for her. She's living her true life, her true path, and she's doing what's right for her. But I kind of, because it stuck in my head, I thought, how would I cope with that if I was in those dire straits? How would I cope? What would I do? And I think for me would definitely be, I don't want to come from a place of victim. I would want to come from a place of, I'm already doing this over here, but I need help with this over here. And like I said, I'm not good at asking for help, but I need to, because it helps to quiet the old ego and expand the heart. On that note, I'm going to leave it, even though it's very long. And if you've lasted this long, you deserve a reward. I hope you have a very blessed day wherever you are on the earth plane. I love you so much, and namaste.